What is shakin' bacons? It is almost the end of September. I can't believe it, but I'm really happy. Fall is in full swing. This is my favorite freaking season ever because there's not bugs everywhere and it's crisp and there is apple picking, fall treats, and I just love fall so much, guys. So I'm just really excited, and I wanted to talk about some Star Wars news that's happened actually pretty recently this month. It's been sort of quiet on the Star Wars front, and then there's a bunch of stuff that popped up this past week that was kind of intriguing, and I thought we should talk about it. Also, what better time to wear my new Princess Leia shirt? Force to be reckoned with. Am I right? Or am I right? Now, our first bit of news is finally Disney is admitting that they are putting out way too many Star Wars movies. Part of that is because Solo flopped. I think we all kind of feel to a degree that this stems originally from the problems with The Last Jedi. They're going to start scaling up the amount of time in between films. I think Disney has realized with the last couple movies that have come out and with fan feedback being very vocal that they are approaching this the wrong way. You know, this is not the Marvel franchise. This is a different franchise and it needs to be handled differently. It's got a different overall fan demographic and it needs to be treated differently. You can't just try and fit a square peg into a round hole. It's not going to work. And it looks as though they are starting to maybe realize that. So in this article from Gizmodo, we see Disney CEO, aka Bob Iger, agrees that maybe one Star Wars movie a year is too much. Yes. Iger has said that the current rate of one Star Wars movie a year is a bit too much for a franchise that's lain dormant at the box office for almost a decade before The Force Awakens came out. They're going to start increasing the amount of time between the movies after Episode 9 comes out because they'd already scheduled when Episode 9 is supposed to be released. And he actually said, I made the timing decision, and as I look back, I think the mistake that I made was a little too much too fast. You can expect some slowdown, but it doesn't mean we're not going to make films. Now, this article attributes the slowdown to Solo not doing as well at the box office. I mentioned earlier that I think the real issue with that was the fact that it was The Last Jedi that really polarized most of the fan base. I personally couldn't stand the movie. I refused to rewatch it. I refused to consider it as canon, and I'm really hoping Episode 9 is going to just wipe it off and brush over it as much as it can be. You know, I think this is going to be a good thing. I've been saying since The Last Jedi and since Solo came out that they are accelerating this too quickly. They're coming out with all bing, and people are getting a little tired. And when you try and rapid fire content out like that, you're not only going to fatigue people, but when you're trying to push and get stuff out, you're going to lose some of the quality too, because there's going to be more emphasis on quantity versus quality. I think that's a pretty generally known and accepted rule of life. So I think that this is going to be a very good thing if they slow it down, increase the quality, take their time on the story, and never let Rian Johnson near any Star Wars anything ever again. Our next bit of news, I kind of find ridiculous, but who knows? It's actually Kevin Smith getting excited about a fan theory. And he got so excited about this fan theory he heard that he actually emailed J.J. Abrams about it, which I think is really kind of funny. Speculation concerns Ahsoka. I read this article on Cinema Blend. I knew I had to talk about it with you guys. Kevin Smith got super stoked, and this is what he says, he relates the fan theory. Because now they don't have Princess Leia stories to tell, they need another strong female character in the universe, and Ahsoka's been there for years, much beloved, just isn't in the movies. I was like, I think maybe they're doing that so they can slowly bring her into the movies. And then Brian blows my effing mind by going, maybe that's who Kerry Russell's playing. And then I said, what the man? I want to see your version of Star Wars. And then I was like, no, that can't be it. I think Kerry Russell probably plays Rey's mom. And then he drops the bomb and goes, what if it's the same person? Well, let's just take a look at Ahsoka. Granted, I am not as familiar with the extended universe as I am with mainline Star Wars. I'm going to readily admit that. However, don't Togruta, they got, you know, they got head tentacles, right? Let's look at Rey. Look at Ahsoka. So if she had a kid with somebody, is it like a thing where it's like one primary genetic structure or the other? So she would have had to have had a child with a human? Kevin Smith wrote to J.J. Abrams and said, "You have to do this. This would be wild. It's one of the greatest fan theories I've ever heard. Not only would she be in the movies, but she's Rey's mom." I understand his enthusiasm, and I really appreciate his enthusiasm. However, they would have to come up with some very good logistics to make that work. And part of me would dread seeing Ahsoka appear in the movies, just because I wouldn't want to see what they do with her. And they've never alluded to her in the films before. I guess it would be a really good way to tie her in with Rey. And I know that it's pretty much assumed that Kerry Russell is going to take on the primary role of a strong female character in Star Wars, because even though Leia's going to be in this next movie, we all know that R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, she's not here anymore. So they're not going to be able to focus or develop the character of Leia the way that they would have been able to previously. Personally, I'm skeptical that Kerry Russell would be playing Ahsoka. Her face does, however, kind of look like the way Ahsoka's face is rendered in the series, but I still think that's kind of a stretch. And we're still not sure what J.J. Abrams is going to do regarding Rey's parentage. Was Kylo going to be lying to her? I really hope so, because otherwise that's like the most boring backstory ever to receive, especially in a series that relies heavily on the impact of heritage on what's unfolding in the galaxy. So I think this is kind of, I don't know. Would you guys want to see Ahsoka brought into the live films, especially with the sequel trilogy? Let me know in the comments below. Our next point of news is from Mental Floss, and there has been a supposed leak about something unfolding in episode 9. There may be a potential traitor in the First Order. An unknown source, you all know how I feel about unknown sources, has revealed there is a traitor within the First Order as part of an episode 9 storyline that will involve Kylo Ren trying to find a mole in his team. Similar to Revenge of the Sith, where the Jedi were trying to find out who the Sith Lord is, that ended up being Palpatine. Now, this would be a very interesting premise if the plotline goes somewhere and it's not. What's interesting is that this report apparently differs from one that came out before, saying that Hux was the mole inside the First Order. I think that this would be a very interesting turn of events for Hux. I really do, and I think it would explain more of his character and more of his part in the series. Me personally, I think that would be a heck of a twist. And I just hope that this hasn't ruined it for me, if that is indeed the twist. I have 2 little bits of bonus news if you are interested, and I'm not going to read this because it is involved. There was a full article put out on Wired.com discussing the physics of a Star Wars bomber dropping bombs in space. This was written by Rhett Elaine. It's a full science article. He talks about how it occurs in Star Wars, and then he breaks down the math, he creates simulated models, and he talks about TIE bombers, how asteroids come in. I really recommend giving this a read. It's pretty fascinating, especially because this guy actually analyzes this. It's very cool to read. If you have time, I'd recommend checking out the physics of a Star Wars bomber dropping bombs in space, particularly since that was such a contentious point in The Last Jedi. And of course, as another side note, I will have links to all of the articles that I discussed today down below, including this one in the description box. The last thing has nothing to do with The Last Jedi, other than the fact that if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that next to the live-action Shyamalan Avatar the Last Airbender film, The Last Jedi is the worst movie film for me that I have ever seen. Tied in with the series and extreme disappointment on the part of a longtime fan. Some of you may have heard, and I know this is not Star Wars news, that Netflix is rebooting the live-action Avatar the Last Airbender. Intriguing. I will be interested to see what they do with this. It's gonna be very easy to beat the Shyamalan production because, let's be honest, I don't know how it could get worse than the Shyamalan production. I really don't know how it could get any worse than that. If you have not seen the animated Avatar the Last Airbender series, I really recommend it. It is probably one of the best animated series I have ever seen, with very deep, well-rounded characters, and even as an adult, you can appreciate it. But what makes me really hopeful about this live-action series is that the original creators of the animated series are actually returning as co-creators to help with this live-action show. I am optimistic, especially with them involved, and Netflix has produced some pretty darn good TV series and some good movies for that matter. Do you guys want to see another Avatar series? But I digress. I have gotten completely off the subject of Star Wars. I apologize for getting off topic. I hope you're all doing amazingly, and I will catch you later.